We'll call the meeting to order. This is the Senate Corporations Committee, and we have one bill up for our discussion today. It is Senate File 82, Duties of Registered Agent Amendments. By way of a little bit of housekeeping, I did invite, I requested more than invite, the Public Service Commission to come stop by a little later in the meeting if anybody wanted to talk to them about their budget, because they had a pretty profound budget cut in their document management system. So anyway, we'll address that. And it's not mandatory. You can stay if you wish. Senator Crago, welcome. Tell us about your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, committee. It's my pleasure to be here today and introduce Senate File 82, Duties of Registered Agents Amendments. As all of you heard me talk about on the floor, we really have a problem back in the home country. Sheridan is the epicenter of LLC filings. I know Fremont County as well, Mr. Chairman, has had some significant issues with this. And to be honest with you, the Secretary of State's office does not necessarily have the tools they need to deal with that. There are some tools there, but not enough. Under our current statute, a registered agent does not have to technically know who owns the company. They have to have a contact. And really, that's not enough. And so people are filing companies, filing LLCs in the state and using those as essentially shells to conduct criminal activities. As I reported on the floor, we have hundreds of criminal requests to our local police department in Sheridan. Our chamber gets requests weekly, about 5 a week, about companies, people looking for companies in Sheridan or Sheridan County that don't really exist there. They've just filed as at one of the registered agent offices there in town. So, Mr. Chairman, the intent of this bill was really to require our registered agents to acquire more information about the companies for which they serve as registered agents. And that's really the meat of the bill. And that's on page 2, lines 10 through 13. And it just says that the registered agent would be required to keep on file the names and addresses of each domestic entity's owners, including but not limited to partners, members, and shareholders, unless the entity meets one of the following. And this was really a carve out for the good companies, the ones that are actually legitimate Wyoming companies or large corporations that could be out of state corporations. So companies that have, as you can see, have more than 100 owners. And I worked with some of the business community to come up with this language, or maintains a fixed physical business location within the state. And it goes on. And then the other two are because I happen to serve on blockchain. That's to alleviate any concerns of the chairman of that particular committee, and because they have different filing requirements, and because their owner, the way the statutes are set up, we would not necessarily need information on all of their ownership, nor would it probably be possible to actually get. And so we exempted those out as well on the third page, the top of the third page. And so really, that's the intent of the bill. Try to create a know your customer type standard, more than what we already have, so that we can stop some of what's going on. Now, Mr. Chairman, I will say, I don't know if this is going to be the end-all solution for this problem. I think we may need to study this some more. I'm just trying to get a stopgap going for the time being. You know, I will be requesting that this make it onto your committee's interim work, because I think it's important. I think it's become an issue where Wyoming is making the news around the country. I've had 2 years ago, I ran this bill. It's not, we've added some additional language, but I ran the first part of the bill, the meat of the bill 2 years ago. And since that time, I don't know how many requests for interviews I've received from around the country about this very issue, from newspapers, magazines, etc., about what's going on in Sheridan and why I ran the bill, because we're making the news and not in a good way. And so I'm hopeful we can fix that and come up with some solutions. But again, Not sure this is the end all solution. I'm happy to take any advice from the people in the room, from all of you, and from the rest of the body as we move this forward, if it moves forward. And again, I will, I'll make a request to you, Mr. Chairman, that we put it on the interim work so that we can continue to look at this and dig even deeper and take the summer to do that. Stand for any questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee.
Thank you very much, Senator Crago. Questions for the senator? Questions for the senator? Scot-free. Stand close. Mr. Secretary, how are you today?
Good, very well. How are you?
Just fine. Welcome. Glad to see your team. You guys are looking great. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I'm Chuck Gray, the Wyoming Secretary of State. I'm joined by our policy director for the Wyoming Secretary of State's office, Joe Rubino, to my left, and Colin Crossman, the Deputy Secretary of State, to my right. And as you remember him from our work during the 2024 interim on the Business Fraud Working Group, the former director of our business division, Mr. Naiman, moved over to the U.S. Attorney's Office. We're very excited for him in his new role. And Mr. Crossman has ascended to the deputy role. We appreciate the time today to discuss this bill. I want to start out by saying that I'm very supportive of this legislation as a tool that could be used to provide a heightened know your customer standard for commercial registered agents so that they know who they're representing. That said, this is something that we need to think about in terms of implementation. I think it's appropriate to take a few minutes just to discuss our office's work, both administratively and with you, the Wyoming legislature, to change the tone and combat business fraud and abuse of corporate filings in Wyoming. I do think this will be a good segue into this bill and the policy change that it is in Wyoming. Now, when I entered office, I really wanted to approach this issue differently from some of the tone that I think the predecessors had used on this issue, which is that we have an issue that we need to address. And that has been what we have done from the start. It's a huge priority of our administration to take on business fraud and administratively dissolve business entities who have filed a false or fraudulent document with our office. To date, we have used the existing statute, which, as the senator noted, is pretty narrow, but we used it like a bazooka to dissolve many fraudulent profit corporations and limited liability companies, processing over 150 affidavits, a manual process to dissolve business entities in accordance with Wyoming law. We don't have any record of, before our administration, that existing statute which allows dissolutions being used. Just last year, in partnership with the FBI, we dissolved 3 entities tied to North Korea's nuclear weapons program. We've also increased the number of audits of commercial registered agents to ensure compliance with the Wyoming Registered Agents Act, and plan to continue to audit these commercial registered agents to ensure that they're in compliance with the law. So that was really the change in tone here in our administration. In addition, we have worked on legislation with you to combat fraud, and we have requested 3 years running the interim topic that the senator discussed on combating business fraud. We got it through, I believe, once, which was in the 2024 interim. Remember that in the 2024 interim, we convened the Business Fraud Working Group, along with county officers, including Assessor Berg from Fremont County, on working to bring through a suite of bills to take on business fraud. A number of those bills did make it through the process. However, we did have one that was near and dear to the hearts of our office, which was verification of third-party filers that unfortunately did not make it through the process. I think that legislation was well vetted, well timed, and placed some of these large filing mills on notice that we're taking, that we have policy tools in the toolkit to really take on business fraud in a more comprehensive way. Now, getting to the bill, this really fits in the requirements of commercial registered agents in requiring commercial registered agents to have certain information on file, specifically the names and address information of an entity's owners, including partners, members, and shareholders, with certain exceptions as specified. To date, Wyoming law requires certain contact information which is a somewhat low threshold, but this would be a policy shift to require registered agents to keep beneficial ownership information for all entities they represent. This information can then be audited by the Secretary of State's office and provided to law enforcement for use in criminal investigations. I do want to note that this information is not a public record under Wyoming law and can only be provided to law enforcement. However, requiring beneficial ownership information be kept on file with the CRA would essentially open up the door for our office and any law enforcement agency involved in a criminal investigation to obtain that information. Now, this would be a policy change requiring entities to provide beneficial ownership information to their commercial registered agent, which could then be obtained by the state. This would have an effect on our filings. We feel that. However, we're very supportive of it. Just to get an idea of the change in our filings, we processed over 830,000 filings in fiscal year 2025. That's up from 675,000 filings in fiscal year 2024. Corresponding increase in revenue in the business division alone, $59.6 million in fiscal year 2025, with $9.1 million growth in fiscal year 2024. And we've had basically commensurate percentage increases for all three, the last 3-4 years. Now, in terms of timing, I do think we need to think on the timing of the implementation of this legislation, make sure that there is that notice there and that we have that appropriate. That said, I'm in strong support of this legislation. I think we need to add some more teeth in our statutes. This is a policy question, so it's largely with the legislature, but I'm very in support of it, and we can implement it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Questions for the Secretary? Senator Landon.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Secretary, good morning. Thank you for all your work on this.
Thank you.
Thanks for your comments on this bill. You mentioned that you thought that there would probably be an impact on filings. Any sense of, can you give us a ballpark percentage? What does your gut tell you with respect to what that's going to do to the numbers that you just shared?
Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are different theories on how the timing of that would be, whether it would be a mass resignation before the effect of the bill or over time, as people basically voluntarily resign by not filing their annual reports. But I think it's somewhere to the tune of 35 to 40%. And that doesn't mean that all those entities are bad. It means that a portion of those could be people that value privacy. This would basically take us, in terms of privacy, one of the tops in the nation to much lower.
Anybody else? Anybody else? Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Did anybody else want to say anything? Congratulations. There you go. All right. Well, stay close. We'll hear from everybody. Should have lots of time. Assessor Bird. This is my assessor, you guys. She's been very active in this area. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning.
And I mean active in a good way.
Yeah, some would say that. Some would agree with you. I also am in support of this bill. I
Go
am
ahead. You've got to say your name if it's okay.
Tara Berg, Fremont County Assessor. I also am in support of this bill strongly. And I am in support of an interim work on this. I think we've come a long way. I appreciate the Secretary of State's help on this. We work together. We have a meeting with him once a month. Fremont County does. Our county's a little different and it has been hard. As some of you know, I did a presentation about 3 years ago. I would be happy to send that to you who have not seen it, about what we see in our county.
And could you give us a flavor for that?
So what happens is when somebody files to form a new corporation, they don't have to have, but they put a registered agent and they put a address of where they have to have a Wyoming address. So what we started doing was we started sending out, in order to collect business personal property, because our local people are paying on it. So, and we're talking hundreds. I think at one point we sent out 800 in 1 month. I believe the fourth quarter filings were 40, was there 40,000 corporations filed in Wyoming in the fourth quarter? So we send out to those new corporations a business personal property request. If it's a registered agent, a lot of those agents were saying, we don't have to talk to you. That's why this number 2 is important. We have to know who these people are. So then we started sending it to the physical address that they were using. They were not asking people if they could use that address. Senator Case is a classic example. They used his vacant lot next to his motel as an address for their operating or for their Wyoming address. So as we start sending it to the local people and saying, here's a corporation at your address, these people respond to us and say, this is not me. There's nobody operating there at that. So as we start to ask further questions, we get stalled and they say, we don't have to talk to you. I can tell you over the last 3 years, Cynthia Lummis's office called me about this. She put me in contact with an FBI agent. We had a lengthy conversation, but again, most of what he said, he's working with the Secretary of State. I don't want any part of that. That's their purview. But he did say there's not a lot of teeth in some of what they have because a lot of fraud that happens here, but these people aren't here. So they have no way. So I would ask if you do an interim that we might have him do some kind of a presentation. But in any event, we're finding out that these people are operating using somebody else's address. So the Secretary of State's office did develop a procedure for us to help those taxpayers file an affidavit, has to be notarized, file an affidavit that says this is not a corporation we have anything to do with, and there's nothing happening at our address. They're using it illegally. We had a gentleman this year that had 5 separate corporations use his address. He was in my office 5 times. We then take all that data and help them get it to the Secretary of State to do what they need to do to dissolve these corporations. My ask in all this, and the Secretary and I have talked about this, is we need to stop this on the front end before your address has ever been used. I don't know how to do that with the stuff that they have and how they, you can just file online. Good thing for the state of Wyoming monetarily, not a great thing for our taxpayers, sometimes our constituents. Elderly people, my fear is there's no way in our offices anymore with all the electronic filings of deeds and all the electronic filings of what's happening, to really know until it's happened that someone's property has been jeopardized. My clerk and I have looked at some different ways. I know Albany County has something that you can log into and see if your property's been, a deed has been filed. But again, we can only take care of what's already happened. If we could stop some of this on the front end. I had one the other day that was a water treatment plant in Lebanon used an address of a mobile home behind the courthouse, behind our courthouse in Lander. I've had Pakistan, I've had Shanghai, and I don't know on the front end, I don't know what they're even doing. I would be interested to see what our correlation is between what our business percentage has increased. What are we getting more sales tax? Are we getting for all these corporations that are being filed and using Wyoming? So I stand in full support of this. Haven't talked to all the assessors about it, but not everybody has the time. I have one person dedicated to this in my office. I was going to stop. Secretary Gray and I talked about it. I think it's effective, at least for my taxpayers, and it is helping their office to find some fraudulent activity, but please help me stop it on the front end.
So does everybody understand what she's doing? When the Secretary of State, the new business listings, if they have a Fremont County address, she sends them a letter. She's doing her job. It's great. And she stumbled on this, and her predecessor was pretty good about this kind of stuff too, but
She was.
it's now just become rampant. So questions for Ms. Berg, Assessor Berg, Senator Doc Stater.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Assessor, how many counties are doing what you're doing? It sounds like you're preemptive. Are we doing this in more counties across Wyoming?
Mr. Chairman, Senator, we're starting. They're starting to see it. Certainly Sheridan County is trying. But when you have 40,000 filed in 1 month and you have the staff and we have exemptions to adhere to and things like that, they're trying. I have noticed my Converse County colleague is here. She has started looking at some of those. Sweetwater County is looking at some of them. And we are finding it spottily across the state, but it seems to be for some reason homed in Fremont and Sheridan. I don't know why that is. And actually, one of the registered agents in Fremont County uses an address, and not condoning or minimizing anything, is a mobile home in one of our rural areas. And that's where 800 of them went. And he said, I don't have to talk to you. The sheriff's department did assure me the other day that they had served papers to him on one of those, and he took the papers. I don't know what he did with them, but so that process is working. I mean, the sheriff's department was able to serve papers, but I think people are trying, Senator Dockstetter, but it has been hard with the amount of work that's come to us over the last couple of years with applying exemptions and whatnot. But I have people come to me now because what the first thing that these taxpayers will notice is they're going to start getting mail for some corporation they don't even know what it is. That's the first clue for people. Now, I know that the Secretary of State has just implemented an online fraud reporting. I think it's great. I was looking at it the other day. The only question I have is it's not available for them to search their address online. So they don't know that their address has been used unless they either get mail or we can help them somehow look at the corporate filings for that year.
I think we have to think about whether we want their addresses to be online, because that could expose them to further fraud. So the assessors have had a lot of extra work the past couple of years. I know you guys realize that. So it's amazing that this is being done. And we've also tried to train people to ignore phishing attempts. And so when you receive something that's saying you're a corporation or blah, 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 chances are you don't want to really respond to that because you're not sure that that's not a nefarious attempt to get you to respond. So this is a difficult area. Appreciate what Assessor Berger is doing. I think she's just been amazing.
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate it, and I thank you, and I do thank the Secretary of State's office. They're very, when we call them with a question or a problem, they're very responsive and handle it. And Secretary Gray knows how I feel about that. Let's try and handle it on the front end.
Yep.
Instead of having people's addresses already compromised.
Very good. Any further questions? Thank you, Assessor
Thank
Berger.
you.
Good to see you.
Good to
Who
see you.
else would like to address the committee on this bill? Okay, thank you. Mr. Meyer, welcome. Kind of a Fremont County sweep here.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Scott Meyer, who through my law firm, Scott W. Meyer PC, I am a commercial registered agent. When I look at this, I wonder about the burden that you might have to make sure you keep track of all this. The 100 number may be a bit high. But the reality is that I probably already have that information anyway, because these are my clients that I work with in setting up entities. It does smell a little bit like FinCEN, which was not a big popular area.
Tell me what that means.
Financial security stuff, where the enforcement of that, where before they asked for everybody's information and people were filing stuff last year left and right until they got stopped.
Yeah.
So I think that there is a privacy issue, but I'm not sure it's so overly burdensome that we couldn't deal with it. The one thing I have to say, and this really gets down to the privacy issue, but as the good chairman knows, there's a usual cast of characters that got together, and we worked a lot on the corporation statutes, the LLC statutes, and the registered agent statutes. When we did the revised Uniform Limited Liability Company Act, it made it with our home cooking. Understand that the law requires that when I file for a client or my client files on their own, they have to tell the Secretary of State two things. the name of the entity and the registered agent. That's all that was required under the law. Now, later on, when you get into the registered agent, now you have to make sure you provide an email address. Makes a little bit of sense, so I can put my email address. I understand and I empathize a little bit where the assessor's coming from in other counties or everything, but we're getting fraudulent addresses. But understand that you're asking something that I can file personally, but if I file online, I have to provide an address, and you don't have to do that by law. So you've given everybody the opportunity to lie. And I find that a bit troublesome because people put down addresses, whether it's the vacant lot, whether it's the mobile home, whatever, but the law does not require that information. And I think that may be something that needs to be dealt with as well, because I'm looking at this going, you're asking me to do stuff that I don't really necessarily need to do. And at the same time, now we want to have extra record keeping. The record keeping problem, part of it that the bringer of the bill brought, I don't have a problem with. Like I said, but most of those are my clients and I know who they are. I may not know all the nieces and nephews that may be in a family deal. It's not like that would be hard to find, but there may be some that are a little more difficult. But it does get in, I think you are starting to push on this thing a little bit when it comes to disclosure and privacy issues. And so I would support an idea of having this in an interim study where we can vet this the whole way out. I certainly stand for any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Questions for Mr. Meyer? Questions? So Mr. Meyer, are you kind of suggesting that we should, that you're not opposed to this bill necessarily? You might prefer not to have the bill and have an interim study, but what if we pass forward the bill and also take it up in interim?
Mr. Chairman, I would say that, like I said, I don't think that's going to be a burden on me. I don't know some of these guys that have a lot, you know.
Right.
I've got several hundred, but I don't have thousands.
Mhm.
And like I said, mine have been my clients for 30 years probably. So that's not, for me, is not that burdensome. It doesn't bother me if it passes it and we bring it up in the interim as well. But,
Okay.
but I do look at this going, well, maybe the 100 might be a little bit more, maybe more, it needs to be more realistic, maybe like, you know, a dozen or 2 dozen, because I don't know where all this would go with some of those other registered agents.
I think we would entertain, you know, any suggestions the committee might want to make. With regard to your other point, that an online filing actually requires a little bit more information than the law requires. That's not something we can fix with this bill, as I see the title we have open and the catch title.
And I would agree, Mr. Chairman. I just, after hearing the testimony, I'm thinking we have bad addresses and everything. Well, you've given them the opportunity to give you a bad address.
Yeah, I understand your point.
Yeah.
All right, thank you, Mr. Meyer. Anybody else in the audience? Mr. Lindholm? Former Representative Lindholm, how are you, sir? Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm not here testifying on behalf of any organization I represent. I'm just testifying on my own individual experiences. And Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I guess I wanted to echo some of what we heard from the county clerk. It's not just a Fremont County situation. I've got a good personal friend that I buy cattle from, and his wife was recently renewing their LLC online. And she, anything happens in politics, she tends to chew on me pretty hard. And so she got a hold of me. She was pretty hot. She had like 6 LLCs all of a sudden, and she couldn't understand it because she was being contacted by this fellow overseas asking when he was going to get his documents. Well, so what's happening, the way the current system works, and I don't believe this bill can fix this, but I guess to lean into the interim study, they just plug in, they just find people that are listed online and they'll just put in any old address. And so in this case, Briley Miller and Deep Creek Livestock has like 6 foreign LLCs that they're a registered agent for that they never knew about, never signed up for.
Wow.
So a definite hole in the system where all of a sudden Wyoming residents, just by registering in their home state as their own registered agent, are being exposed to what could be bad actors overseas. And that's a deep concern. And Briley would absolutely beat me up if I didn't say something. So I had to come up and say it, Mr. Chairman.
So, Mr. Lindholm, you would support this bill and possibly more discussions in the interim? Is that what I'm understanding?
Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I personally, yes, I support this legislation, but I do think that there needs to be there needs to be a harder look during the interim as far as what's going on with the secretary's website and software. As far as, is it an easy fix there? Probably, but I think it's probably involving the legislature in that regard.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Questions for former representative? It's good to see you.
Thank you, Mr.
I think you're taller. Yeah. Anybody else wish to address the committee from the room? How about online? Do we have anybody? Okay, committee, you've heard the testimony. What is your pleasure? Got a motion by Boner. Discussion? Discussion. Anybody care to limit the size of the corporation? Just asking. I think that'll be discussed as we go forward. The number of shareholders? Not seeing anything?
Mr. Chairman.
Senator Steinmetz.
Mr. Chairman, could we bring the sponsor back up and ask if he would like us to make that amendment or if he thinks this is adequate?
Yeah, certainly we can. Senator Crago? Are you wed to the 100 or if it was dropped to 50? Would it make a difference or what?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Steinmetz, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah.
To be quite honest, I just tried to pick a number that was, because really that's going to be the out-of-state companies.
Yep.
We're talking about out-of-state companies at that point, because the provision below that protects all of our actually in-state resident companies. So, and a lot of us, have a lot of our, I'm a commercial registered agent as
Sure.
well. All of mine are local. I mean, they're all Wyoming based companies or entities for that matter. So I don't know. I'm not opposed to it. It does not bother me one way or the other, because that's the entities we're trying to get at to prevent the fraud are not going to qualify for any of this. They're not going to be able to produce any of those records. And so that's the whole point. So if it would make our registered agents' lives easier to lower that, I'm totally fine with that, Mr. Chairman. But I don't have any empirical data or knowledge one way or the other. I mean, that'd probably be a better question for some of the bigger registered agents that have hundreds of thousands of these entities registered, and they're not here. So
Fair enough. Anything else from Mr. Crago? Senator Crago, there's a question I should have asked earlier. In Wyoming statute, there's a distinction between a commercial registered agent and a person that does a few number of corporations. Like I'm a registered agent for my own businesses, but does this statute apply to both? It does.
Mr. Chairman, that's my understanding. There's a few different, it's a numbers game. So I think I'd have to ask the secretary or his
Used to be
staff, but I
7 or 10
think
or
it's
something.
10. I believe it's if you're 10 or more, you qualify as a commercial registered agent. But where it fits in the statute, this will apply to all registered
Gotcha.
agents.
Thank you for that. All right, back on the bill, everybody. Any amendments? Not seeing any amendments. Let's call the roll.
Mr. Chairman, this is a roll call vote for Senate File 82. Senator Boner. Senator Dockstetter.
Aye.
Senator Landon.
Senator Landon left a proxy vote of aye.
Senator Steinmetz.
Aye.
Chairman Case.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, you have 5 aye.
Thank you. And Senator Crago, you'll obviously carry this bill on the floor. I neglected the other day to make assignments of the bills as they came through. So help me to remember that, but you'll obviously be carrying the bill on the floor. Thank you very much. So I've invited the Public Service Commission to come give us a little bit of a briefing about their budget. It's totally public. Everybody's willing to, welcome to stay if they're that interested. But a particular concern, and there was a letter from the chairman, which I have shared with both corporations committees, and it regarded the document management system, which Joint Appropriations Committee had cut out. So I yield to you, Deputy Chairman Petrie and Ms. Norby. Good to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. Welcome. Tell us about your budget and what's happened.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Chris Petrie, Deputy Chairman at the Wyoming Public Service Commission, and Marcy Norby, our administrator, is with me. we were surprised to see our first budget priority rejected by the Joint Revenue Committee or Appropriations Committee. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If you've seen the letter, we've laid out as thoughtfully as we could how important this document management system is to us. It's occurred to me that we perhaps have come to call it by a name that diminishes or minimizes its importance, because it makes it sound like it's a filing system or something of that sort, but it's really a lot more than that. And basically all the processes of the commission touch on, flow through, and depend on the document management system. The system that we've got was put in place about 15 years ago, and it's essentially a piece of software. And we've had work done on it in the interim of that 15 years. And we have taken it about as far as we can possibly take it. It is not up to the task at this point. And we're very concerned that if it fails, which it could, I'm not an IT guy, but with the relatively small team that we've got, and the way that commission proceedings have changed over the last 20 years, the document intensity has become very extreme, and we really don't have, we can't afford a loss of efficiency that we would face if we have to regress to a more paper-oriented system or to operate without a document management system at all. This was planned to and was expected to reduce some of the remaining manual processes that exist in our office, gain us additional efficiency, and we really have a great dependency on this system and a need for something better if we're going to continue to do our job as the regulatory environment and the utility business environment continues to grow more complicated and a faster pace is expected. And so this is really a critical item for the commission, and we certainly happy to answer any questions or explain it any further if you'd like.
So everybody, I think the system probably has other uses, but one of the uses is it manages the filings that participants make in cases before the Public Service Commission. And some of these filings involve a tremendous number of documents and a tremendous number of participants. And so like you pick something like a Rocky Mountain Power rate case, which I don't know how many interveners you had and how many pages of documents and tables and spreadsheets and on and on and on, as well as people that aren't full interveners but make comments and have to be included in the case, and the records of hearings held all around the state, all available to the public. So you might think of it as sort of akin to our bill management system or something. I'm sure they're not even close to being the same thing, but it allows the public access and the participants a way to file their documents and have them available to all the other participants and the public in a timely way, as well as at the same time, some of those documents can be restricted. I mean, it's just like when there's proprietary information and on and on and on, but it's quite complicated. And the PSC has filings every day. Some are normal routine, some are these major rate cases, but have I characterized that right? It's more than a rate case though, right? It's all sorts of things that the commission does.
Mr. Chairman, you have characterized it very well. And I didn't think of your bill management system,
Yeah.
but I can imagine thinking back to the way that used to be done and how clumsy and opaque it was to the public. And it was even opaque to people like me that were working in the Attorney General's office. And, you know, it took a lot of effort to know what was going on in the legislature compared to what it takes now. The same thing's true with the Public Service Commission's operations. it is the system that makes all of our paperwork, except as you mentioned, the proprietary confidential stuff, available to everybody in the public. The participants in the cases rely on it completely, from filing to receipt of the other, to access to the other documents, access to historic documents. If you're an intervener in a rate case, you're not only interested in the many thousands of pages of information that come with that rate case, you're also in need of access to the past rate case and maybe the rate case before that. And if that's all available through a system like this, it is extremely helpful. I mean, we don't have the large archive of case files kept in the office anymore. We've moved beyond that quite some time ago. And, and without it, you've got people basically pawing through, rows of file cabinets, and it's not at your fingertips, even if you're in the office. Similar to the parties, our people need routine, easy access to all those past proceedings files. And it's I think impossible to overstate how important this system is to the commission and what a catastrophe it would be if the thing was no longer available. And it's not sustainable. It's not, it's not a ETS supported system. It's from long ago. We have maintained one IT person, one IT staffer in the Public Service Commission staff. And it is no longer supported by the vendor that we got it from. It's really, we're really kind of walking the edge with this thing.
Okay, you've made your point, and I want to get the senators out of here. But just by the way, the numbers, it was, and Senator Steinmetz would understand this as well, but it's footnote number 1 under section 2 of section 23 is your agency number. And it's just JAC denied the Gov's rec of 600,000 SR, of which 400,000 SR is one time to replace the document management system. This was budget request page 17. So it's a $600,000 request, $400,000 one time, and $200 ongoing, I take it. And you're an enterprise agency in the sense that you have the public utility tax. Is any of that money available, or how does that work? Do you pay it back? I'm unclear on that.
Mr. Chairman, there is additional headroom in the public utility assessment to cover what we requested.
Okay. So
it's an assessment on, it's the public utility assessment. It's an assessment on the gross retail revenues of all the public utilities.
Any question by committee, and you're welcome to contact the PSC on your own. I hope I shared the letter from the chairman with all of you and with our House members. So yeah, go ahead, Senator Steinmetz.
Just for anyone listening online, and obviously this committee knows that, but special revenue is not out of the general fund. It's out of your own operational and fees that you've collected. And so we're not asking.
It's
for
not a
money
general
from
fund
The general
request.
fund.
Yeah.
So it's basically the agency's own money that they're just using on their technology. So
For the participants the
yeah,
very
exactly,
ones
the
that are
ones
in the
that
agency.
paid the fees in the
Yeah.
first place. So
My point exactly.
yeah,
Thank you,
it kind
Senator.
of seems a bit, maybe the committee would want to visit about all signing on an amendment to
Okay,
look at that.
all right. So, and we somehow need to talk to our House friends as well. Maybe Chairman Knapp would consider having you guys over, but I don't mean to speak for him. But I'm grateful that you came, and everybody, I asked them to come. They didn't push on me. So, all right. Anything else you guys want to add? I'd like to let people get back to their seats.
Mr. Chairman, members, thank you for having us.
With pleasure. Thank you. Good to see you. All right, we're adjourned.